There is a moment in Season 4 of The Amazing World of Gumball where the episode loses its own signal. Not the television Richard is watching, the actual episode. The screen goes black. The words "no signal" appear. And when the picture comes back, the characters are somewhere different, and nobody mentions the jump. The writers planned that. They built it deliberately. Then they hid real crew member names inside the glitch frames for an audience they trusted to eventually pause and look. That is not a children's cartoon being weird for the sake of weird. That is a team of people who loved their show so much they started leaving messages inside the static. The Amazing World of Gumball spent 6 seasons hiding the most honest things it had to say inside the scenes that looked the most like nonsense. 10 episodes, 10 moments where the surface breaks and something stranger and more real comes through underneath. Welcome to Voidmorian. Now, let us get into it. The show that forgot it was a show. There is a moment in Season 4 of The Amazing World of Gumball where the episode itself loses signal. Not the television Richard is watching in the living room, the episode, the actual thing you are watching. The screen goes black, the words "no signal" appear, and for a second, just long enough to make your stomach drop, the show ceases to exist. Then it comes back, mid-scene, wrong scene. Characters are somewhere different than they were 30 seconds ago, and nobody mentions the jump. That is the episode called The Signal, and it is one of the strangest 11 minutes of television ever made for children, or anyone. But here is the thing about The Amazing World of Gumball that most people who grew up with it never quite put into words. That moment was not a glitch. The show did not accidentally air a corrupted file. The writers sat down, planned it out, built the whole episode around the specific feeling of watching something fall apart while it is happening, and then hid real crew member names, a production accountant named Jack Dingle, a director named Mike Graves, inside the glitch frames where most kids would never think to pause and look. That is not a children's cartoon being weird for the sake of weird. That is a team of writers who loved their show so much they started encoding messages inside the static for an audience they trusted to eventually find them. This video is about the scenes from The Amazing World of Gumball that make zero sense, and why, the longer you sit with them, the more sense they make than almost anything else the show ever did. Gumball ran from 2011 to 2019 on Cartoon Network. 6 seasons, 240 episodes. The show follows a blue cat named Gumball Watterson, his adopted goldfish brother Darwin, their genius little sister Anais, their enormous lazy father Richard, and their exhausted but genuinely terrifying mother Nicole, all living in a town called Elmore where literally anything can be a person. There are living balloons, a sentient peanut who turns out to be a shape-shifting fairy creature, a background character who is just a pair of walking scissors. The show never explains any of this because explanation would ruin it. On the surface, The Amazing World of Gumball is a cartoon about a weird family getting into trouble and mostly getting out of it by the end of 11 minutes. The kind of thing a kid can put on and laugh at without thinking too hard. There is slapstick, there are references, there is a running joke about Larry, the guy who works every single job in Elmore simultaneously, and every episode he ends up worse off for having met the Wattersons. That is the surface. Underneath the surface, the show spent 6 years quietly building one of the most unusual arguments any cartoon has ever made. That the characters knew they were cartoons, that this terrified them, and that the thing hunting them, the thing that would eventually end their world, was a dimension made of television static that erased things from existence when they stopped being interesting enough to keep around. The show called it The Void. The show's creator, Ben Bacale, built it into the series from season 3 onward, seeding its existence across dozens of episodes, and then used it as the engine of the series finale. A children's show ended with its main characters unknowingly choosing not to be saved. The only person who understood what was happening falling screaming into the static, and the words "to be continued" appearing over a screen that was already turning to noise. There was no season 7, not for 6 years. Before any of that though, before The Void, before Rob, before the universal remote that cost $12.99 and could rewind the entire universe, the show had to establish something. It had to make you understand the world of Elmore well enough that when the world started breaking, you would feel it. The episode that did this better than any other was not a season finale. It was not a special. It was the 8th episode of season 2. It was about Richard getting a pizza delivery job. The episode is called The Job. The premise sounds completely ordinary. Richard, who has never worked a day in his adult life, accidentally calls a pizza place while looking for a regular phone number, accidentally gives them his social security number, thinking it was just a strange thing they needed, and accidentally gets hired as an Italian food distribution engineer, which is what he decides to call himself because it sounds better than delivery driver. Nicole's reaction is not happiness, it is fear. She cannot explain the fear at first. Something is just wrong. Something in the air of Elmore has changed in a way she cannot put into words, and she spends the first half of the episode looking like a person who has walked into a room and forgotten why, but knows the reason was important. She is right to be afraid. Richard starts his first delivery route, and reality begins to dissolve. It starts small. A car floats slightly off the ground as Richard drives past it. Nothing dramatic, just a car, doing what cars do not do. Then the Banana Family, a background family who shows up in Elmore like furniture, gets caught in a loop. Richard drives past them, and something in the air snaps, and suddenly they are repeating themselves. Pizza, 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 they chant. Gumball asks them questions. Pizza, pizza, pizza. He asks them what the Leaning Tower is called. Pizza, pizza, pizza. He gives them the point anyway. It escalates from there. By the midpoint of the episode, the fabric of Elmore is coming apart in every direction. Characters shift between animation styles. One scene has the Wattersons and Larry rendered as real live-action animals sitting in a car. Actual filmed footage of actual animals dropped into the middle of an animated episode with zero comment. Then they are back to cartoons. Then they are clay figures. Then they are back to cartoons again. Larry screams that tearing apart the fabric of the universe is not a dismissible offense. He is right, nobody listens. Richard is entirely oblivious throughout all of this. He is just trying to deliver pizzas. He is actually, for the first time in his life, good at something. He is following the map, finding the addresses, handing over the boxes with genuine pride. He has no idea that his competence is cosmically illegal. The show makes clear, not through long speeches, just through the way the sky turns and the rules of physics bend, that Richard having a job is not simply unlikely. Richard having a job is a violation of something so fundamental to the nature of Elmore that the universe treats it the same way a body treats an infection. It is trying to fix itself. What the episode is actually doing, and this is the thing that takes a few years and a few rewatches to fully see, is laying out a principle that will run under the entire show for the next 4 seasons. The people of Elmore are not just characters in a town. They are characters in a show. They have roles. Their roles are not jobs they chose or personalities they developed. Their roles are structural facts about the universe they live in. Richard is the unemployed father. Darwin is the loyal brother. Aeneas is the smart one. And Gumball is the main character, which turns out to carry its own very specific kind of weight in a world where the void is real, and it takes things that stop mattering. Richard nearly succeeds in making a delivery. The family chases him across Elmore in increasing desperation, trying to get him fired before reality collapses entirely. He makes it to the doorstep. He rings the bell. The customer opens the door. The center of the pizza is missing because Richard ate it on the route. He is fired. Normalcy returns. Cars land back on the ground. The Banana Family stops chanting. The universe exhales. And then Richard, sitting in his helmet in the driveway, looks up at his family and says he is going to find another job. The dramatic music plays. The camera zooms out. Nicole, Gumball, Darwin, and Anais all turn and look directly at the camera. Lightning strikes Richard's outstretched finger from a completely clear sky. His eyes turn red. The episode ends. That final shot is one of the most carefully constructed jokes in the series. It has the shape of a horror ending. The thing you thought was defeated is still out there, still coming. And the content of a punchline. Richard is not evil. Richard is not threatening. Richard is a man who had one good day at work and wants another one. The joke is that this is the most dangerous thing that could possibly happen. The show never lets you fully decide which reading is correct, because both are true simultaneously. The Job was the episode, according to multiple writers and fans who followed the show from the beginning, where the Amazing World of Gumball became what it actually was. The episodes before it were funny. They were inventive. They had the mixed animation styles and the strange characters and the jokes that worked on 2 levels at once. But they were still operating within the normal boundaries of what a cartoon is supposed to do. The Job stepped outside those boundaries and looked back at them. It said, the rules of this world are not just conventions. They are physics. And somewhere in the writing of that episode, in the decision to make Richard's employment a universe-ending event, the show started building something that would take until the final episode to to fully arrive. The void was not invented for Season 3. The void was there from the moment the writers decided that cartoon characters have roles, and roles are laws, and laws can be broken, and something happens when they are. The Job is where the clock started. Most people who watched it in 2012 laughed at the floating cars, and the live-action animals, and the banana family stuck in their loop. They were not wrong to laugh. It is a genuinely funny episode. But sitting with it now, knowing what the show spent the next 7 years doing, there is a different texture to Nicole's fear at the beginning. She does not know why Richard having a job is wrong. She just knows. She has lived in Elmore long enough to feel when something has broken a rule that was never written down. The whole series is in that feeling. The scenes that make zero sense in The Amazing World of Gumball are almost never actually senseless. They are the show letting the rules of its world show through the surface of the cartoon. Sometimes that looks like floating cars. Sometimes it looks like an episode that loses its own signal mid-broadcast and comes back somewhere else. And sometimes it looks like a dimension made of static, erasing the things that stopped mattering, waiting patiently at the edges of a world that is trying very hard not to notice it. The Job established the rule. What the rest of this video is about is what happened when the show started breaking it on purpose. Before we move on, if you're enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. Because the universe-ending stakes of a pizza delivery are still relatively contained, still local to Elmore, still something the Wattersons could outrun, the next category of scenes is different. These are the scenes where the show did not just bend its own rules. These are the scenes where it reached into its own history, grabbed a character everyone had already forgotten, and used her to explain what happens when a world decides something was a mistake. Section 2. The dimension that erases you for being boring. Do you remember Molly? Most people do not. That is the point. Molly Collins was a gray dinosaur, a sauropod technically, the long-necked kind, who attended Elmore Junior High in Season 1 of The Amazing World of Gumball. She had a few lines, she appeared in the background, she was in an episode called The Pressure, where the kids built a treehouse and dared each other to kiss someone. She was there, she existed, and then somewhere between Season 1 and Season 2, she was simply gone. No explanation, no goodbye episode, no character moving away or graduating or getting eaten by something larger. She was just not in the show anymore. The way background characters sometimes quietly disappear from cartoons when the writers stop finding uses for them. Most viewers never noticed. The ones who did notice shrugged and moved on. Season 3, Episode 12 is called The Void. It is the show's answer to where Molly went. And the answer is so strange, so specific, and so quietly horrifying that it reframes everything that comes after it and a fair amount of what came before. The episode begins with Gumball and Darwin at school, and something is off. Not dramatically off, not floating cars or glitching episodes or live-action animals in the middle of an animated scene. Something smaller, a feeling. The kind of feeling where you walk into a room and something is different, but you cannot immediately say what. Darwin mentions it first. He feels like something is missing, but he cannot name it. Gumball cycles through suggestions. Your fingers? Darwin says no. Hair? No. Some kind of torso? Still no. They stand in the hallway with the specific blankness of people trying to remember a word that is right on the edge of their memory, and the word will not come. Then Gumball notices the locker, number 116, except it is not there anymore. There is a gap in the wall where a locker used to be, and inside the gap, tucked into the space where the locker was, is a photograph. A blurry photograph. Blurry in the specific way where a person used to be in the image, and now the image does not know what to do with the space they occupied. Gumball stares at the photograph long enough for the memory to push through. There was a girl. She was a dinosaur. Her name was Molly, and she was his friend, and she has been gone for what the show implies is over a year, and nobody, not a single person in Elmore, remembers her except Gumball, and only barely, and only because he is standing close enough to the gap she left to feel the outline of it. He tries to tell his classmates. Nobody knows what he is talking about. Tobias looks at him like he has asked a question in a language that does not exist. The teacher continues teaching. The world of Elmore has not just forgotten Molly. The world of Elmore has folded itself over the space she occupied, like a wound closing, and the fold is so clean that only the things that were closest to her, a gap in a wall, a blurry photograph, the faint echo of a feeling, survived the erasure. This is when Mr. Small gets involved. Mr. Small is Elmore Junior High's guidance counselor. He is a cloud of pink fluff with a face. He wears a headband and talks about vibes with complete sincerity. He is, under normal circumstances, the show's show's most reliable source of well-meaning uselessness. He is also the only adult in Elmore who has been expecting something like this. Gumball and Darwin find him in his office, wearing a tinfoil hat, meditating with eyes drawn on his torso and the top of his head painted yellow with a red stripe down the middle. He looks insane. He sounds insane. He has a list of people and things he believes have disappeared from Elmore without explanation, including his beloved van, a vehicle he calls Janice and refers to as the love of his life. Except he is completely correct. He explains it to them with the calm of someone who has been waiting a long time to be believed. Elmore is not a normal place. The world makes mistakes, and when the world makes a mistake, when it creates something that does not work, something that is not interesting enough, something that does not have enough of a reason to exist, it gets rid of it quietly, completely. It erases the thing, and then erases the memory of the thing, and then folds the space over so there is no evidence there was ever a gap. He says Molly was probably erased for being boring. This lands differently depending on how old you are when you hear it. At 9 or 10, it is a funny bit of cartoon logic, the idea that the universe has opinions about personality. At 15 or 16, it starts to feel like something else. At 20, watching it again, knowing what the show does with this idea across the next 3 seasons, it is one of the bleakest things a children's cartoon has ever said out loud. A person was erased from existence because the world found her uninteresting. Her friends forgot her. Her locker disappeared. The only evidence she ever existed is a blurry photograph and a gap in a wall. And the show treats this not as a tragedy to be mourned, but as a fact about how the world works. A rule as neutral and permanent as gravity. Mr. Small gives them tinfoil hats. The tinfoil hats, apparently, are the only things that let a person remember what the world is trying to make them forget. They put them on. They go to find Molly. Where Molly's treehouse used to be, there is a fold. The show does not over-explain this. The world has literally folded in on itself at the point where her home was, like a piece of paper creased over a tear. Mr. Small tells Gumball to look closely, both literally and in the way people mean when they say it without meaning it literally. Gumball looks. He grabs the fold. He pulls. The fold opens into the void. The void looks like a broken television screen. Not a black screen. Not a blue screen. Static. The white and gray noise of a channel that does not exist. Stretched out in every direction as far as anything can be stretched. Objects float through it. Pieces of other places. A ship. A basketball hoop from an older era. A refrigerator with design flaws. Disco. Jorts. The mullet hairstyle. Clippy. The little paperclip assistant from old versions of Microsoft Word. Crazy Frog. The ringtone character. All the things the world decided were mistakes, floating in the nothing of a dimension made of television static. And in the middle of all of it, frozen in time like a paused video, standing in her treehouse exactly as she was the last time anyone thought about her, is Molly. She does not know she has been gone for over a year. For her, standing there in the nothing, it has been one day. She was talking to her friends, and then she was here. That is the whole of her experience of the void. A sudden displacement, and then a weight, and she cannot even feel the weight, because time does not move the same way inside static. Gumball touches her hand. She comes back to life. She is confused and relieved, and she has no idea how much has happened since she left. Mr. Small finds Janice, his beloved van, which turns out to be a painted hippie van that runs on good energy. They climb in. They drive toward the exit. The void tries to close before they can get through, pulling at the opening, narrowing the gap, and in the chaos of getting out, something stays behind. Someone, actually. There is a boy in the void, a blue boy with one eye. He has been there since season 1, when nobody noticed him. He is clinging to the edge of the scene, calling out for help as Gumball and Darwin run past him. They do not hear him. They are too focused on Molly, on the closing portal, on getting out before the static swallows everything. The blue boy reaches for the van as it passes. He grabs onto the back. He holds on. His name is Rob. And what the void does to a person who escapes it wrong, clinging to the back of a van instead of walking through the door, is leave them broken, glitched. His body becomes polygonal and jagged, like a computer model that has been pulled apart and reassembled wrong. His voice comes out strange. His face does not sit right on his head. He falls away from the van as it exits. He lands back in Elmore alone, with no memory of who he is, no one who recognizes him, and a body that looks like something the show's own animation has rejected. He will become Gumball's greatest enemy. Not because he is evil, exactly, exactly, because Gumball gave him a purpose, and the purpose that the story handed him was villain. And Rob, who never asked for any of this, took what he was given and tried to do something with it. But that is a different section. Gumball, Darwin, Mr. Small, and Molly make it out. They stand outside in the daylight of Elmore, alive and together, and they agree that they need to tell everyone. They need to warn people. They need to explain what is under the surface of this town, what the folds in space are hiding, what happens to the things and people who stop mattering enough to stay. The void reaches back through the closing portal and takes their tinfoil hats. Their memories go with them. By the time they have taken 3 steps away from where the treehouse used to be, none of them can remember why they are standing there. Molly is back in school on Monday. Nobody asks where she went. Nobody quite remembers that she was gone. The world has permitted her return and permitted the forgetting of her absence in the same motion, and the fold is smooth again, and Elmore continues. This is the ending the show chose. Not rescue, not victory, not a lesson learned, a clean erasure of the memory of what they just experienced, which is the Void's last move and its most efficient one. The danger of the Void is not just that it takes things. The danger is that once something is taken, the world cooperates with the loss. The world makes the gap comfortable. The world helps you forget. The Void reappears across the rest of the series in pieces. In an episode called The Oracle, an artist named Banana Barbara, who can paint the future with perfect accuracy without understanding what she is painting, produces a canvas showing the entire Watterson family, terrified, running through a field of static as Elmore collapses into nothing around them. This painting shows up in the background of several episodes before anyone mentions it. The show is patient about what it plants and when it lets it bloom. In an episode called The Nobody, the Wattersons discover someone living in their basement, a glitched, polygonal figure who cannot remember who he is. He tells them he is a nobody. He has no purpose, no role, no reason to exist in the world of Elmore. Darwin and Gumball, with the particular cluelessness that defines them, suggest that what he needs is a purpose, and what Elmore is missing, as far as they can tell, is a proper villain. He could be that. He could be their nemesis. He tries to remember who he was. He goes back through a flashback of the void, of clinging to the van, of being left behind, of the escape that broke him. And by the end of it, he knows his name. He is Rob. And Gumball is the reason he is broken, which means Gumball is the thing he has to care about, which means Gumball has given him exactly what the world was going to take from him, a reason to exist. The cruel joke buried in all of this is that Rob is the only character in the entire series who fully understands what the void is and what it is doing. He escaped it. He remembers it. He spent the rest of the series trying to warn people about it, trying to save Elmore from a fate nobody else could see coming. And he did it wearing the role of the villain because that was the only costume available when he needed one. He fell back into the void in the series finale. The exact falling pose he made was visible in Banana Barbara's painting from 3 seasons earlier. The show knew how Rob's story ended before most viewers knew Rob existed. The void is the most important invention in the Amazing World of Gumball, and it is almost never discussed in those terms. Most people talk about it as a cool bit of world building, a strange dimension with an interesting visual, a plot device that explains where minor characters go. That reading is not wrong, exactly. The void does all of those things, but it is also something more specific and more uncomfortable than a plot device. The void is what happens to the things that stop mattering. The characters in Elmore are cartoons. They exist because stories need them. The moment a story stops needing them, the moment they become flat, boring, purposeless, too weird, too old, too much like a mistake, the world erases them quietly, cleanly, and then helps everyone forget there was anything to miss. Molly was not taken because she was bad. She was taken because the show had stopped finding a reason to put her in scenes. The void is not a villain with a plan. The void is a universe enforcing a rule. Things that do not matter do not get to stay. The show spent 6 seasons arguing against that rule. Every episode where Gumball and Darwin went out of their way for someone nobody cared about. Every episode where the background characters got their own stories. Every episode where Rob, the least important person in the room, was given something to do that mattered. The show was building a case. The case was simple. Everything that exists deserves to keep existing. Even the boring things. Even the flat things. Even the things the world would rather forget. The void disagreed. The void always always disagreed. And in the end, the void won. But the show made sure you felt the loss of that before it let the credits roll over the static. Before we move on, if you're enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. The void erases by making you forget. The next category of scenes works differently, and in some ways, more disturbingly. These are the scenes where the show did not erase its characters, but actively broke them, glitched them, corrupted their dialogue, and scattered their reality across wrong animation styles, and then let them come close enough to figuring out the truth that you could feel the walls of the universe pushing back. The Signal is where all of that lives, and it is 11 minutes of television that should not work as well as it does. Section 3, the episode that broke itself on purpose. The Signal begins with a stutter, not a dramatic one, not the kind of thing that immediately grabs attention and announces that something strange is happening. Just a brief flicker at the very start, the image stuttering for half a second before settling. The kind of thing a person watching casually might blink through and miss entirely. The kind of thing that, on a second watch, knowing what the episode is building toward, feels like the first crack in a wall that is about to come apart completely. Gumball and Darwin are at the Elmore Mall. Darwin is trying on hats. This is one of the most normal things these two characters have ever done at the start of an episode. No villain, no scheme, no cosmic event already in motion. Just a goldfish with legs standing in front of a hat display, asking his brother if a particular beanie makes his head look fat. Gumball opens his mouth to answer, and then nothing comes out right. The word he is trying to say splits in the middle. The audio skips. His mouth keeps moving, but the sounds coming out do not match what he is clearly trying to say. Darwin hears something completely different from what Gumball meant, something that sounds very much like an insult about the size of Darwin's head, and Darwin's face does exactly what Darwin's face does when he has been genuinely hurt. Not comedic hurt, not the exaggerated cartoon reaction, actually hurt, quietly, in the specific way that lands when someone you trust says something unkind. He walks away. Gumball tries to follow. The scene glitches out. The word glitch is used loosely in conversations about this episode, so it is worth being specific about what the show actually does and how it does it. The Signal does not just scramble Gumball's dialogue, it scrambles the episode itself. Scenes cut to the wrong place. Moments that should connect to each other do not. Gumball tries to explain himself to Darwin, and the explanation lands wrong because the words come out in the wrong order, or with sound swapped, or just as static that Darwin interprets through his own hurt feelings into the worst possible version of what Gumball might have meant. The episode cuts to Richard at home, panicking because the television has lost its signal. He is trying to fix it, pressing every button on the remote in random order, wiggling the cable, doing all the things a person does when they do not understand how a device works but refuse to admit it. He ends up giving the TV away because he cannot fix it, which means the episode's B-plot, Richard having to part with his television, mirrors the A-plot in the specific way Gumball always mirrors its smaller stories against its larger ones. Richard is losing his connection to the screen. Gumball and Darwin are losing their connection to each other because the screen they exist on is malfunctioning. None of the characters know they are on a screen. That is the part that makes the episode work. The glitches escalate as the episode moves forward. Gumball tries to apologize to Darwin at the gym. Darwin is lifting weights. Gumball starts a sentence and the episode cuts away mid-word. Not a clean cut, a broken one. The kind of cut that happens when a recording has been damaged and comes back somewhere else. The weights are different. Darwin's position has changed. The apology has not landed because it was never completed. There is a moment where Gumball grabs Darwin by the shoulders and the camera pushes in close on Darwin's face, and for a single half second, Darwin's pupils are replaced with real human eyes. Actual photographed human eyes, sitting in the middle of an animated goldfish face, looking out of the screen with an expression that is difficult to categorize. Then they are gone. Darwin is back to normal. The moment is never commented on. This is one of the details that makes the Signal genuinely unsettling in a way that goes past the surface of the joke. The human eyes are not explained. They are not a punchline. They appear and disappear, and the show moves forward. And the viewer is left with the faint sensation of having seen something that was not supposed to be visible. The car scene is where the episode fully commits to what it has been building. Richard fills the car with gas at a gas station. The scene glitches. The next thing visible is the car on a highway, moving fast, with Gumball and Darwin inside it, and Richard standing back at the gas station, left behind, glitching in place like a frozen video. The car has no driver. It is moving on its own through traffic, crashing through obstacles, swinging through the parking lot of the Elmore Mall, slamming into a joyful birthday burger, bouncing back out, accelerating toward the TV section of a store. The same televisions that were at the start of the episode. The same screens showing the same news report about satellite interference across Elmore. When the car finally slows, Gumball and Darwin sit in the wreckage and look at each other. They are close to understanding something. The episode has been building to a moment where the characters put together what the viewer has already half assembled, that the glitches are not happening to them. The glitches are happening to the thing they exist inside of. That they are not people experiencing technical difficulties. They are characters in a show experiencing broadcast difficulties. Gumball opens his mouth. He is about to say it. He is about to become the first character in the series to fully name what the show is. The episode cuts to the dinner table. The whole Watterson family is there. Richard says that Gumball and Darwin made up. Everyone laughs. Nicole laughs. Anais laughs. Richard laughs. Gumball and Darwin laugh too, but their laughs are wrong, tight and nervous. The laugh of people performing laughter because everyone around them is laughing and stopping would require an explanation they do not have. The episode glitches one final time. Credits. What the show hid inside the glitch frames is the detail that separates the signal from a clever gimmick and puts it into something else entirely. Frame by frame through the broken parts of the episode, there are things that should not be there. Part of a real human face, belonging to Mike Graves, one of the episode's directors, visible at the bottom of the screen during one of the cuts. The name Jack Dingle, a production accountant who worked on the show, appearing in the logo during the glitch sequence. Guillaume Cassudo, another crew member, visible through Darwin's body in one scene. Not behind Darwin, not next to Darwin, but visible through him, like Darwin's animated form has become temporarily transparent and the person on the other side of the screen can be seen through the gap. These are not animation errors. The show placed these details deliberately inside the damaged frames, where only a viewer who paused the episode and looked closely would ever find them. The message is not written out anywhere, but the message is clear enough. The people who made this show are real. They exist on the other side of the screen, and when the screen breaks, when the signal goes out, when the episode loses itself, and the animation stutters, and the reality of Elmore comes apart at the edges. In those moments, the real world leaks through. The episode is the show demonstrating its own construction. Gumball and Darwin live in a television program. The television program is made by real people. The glitches are moments where the distance between those two facts becomes visible. The title card of The Signal is the only title card in the show's history that glitches. This is a small thing, and also not a small thing. Every episode of The Amazing World of Gumball has a title card, the image and text that appears at the start of the episode, usually accompanied by a musical sting. The title cards are consistent. They are one of the stable visual elements of the show's format, reliable enough that the moment they appear, a viewer knows the episode has officially begun. The Signal's title card breaks. The letters stutter. The musical sting that normally plays is replaced by a reversed version of the opening theme, mixed with ambient noise from the void, mixed with pieces of the Elmore News broadcast. Hidden inside the audio of the title card, if the sound is reversed and listened to carefully, are audio clues that the episode is connected to the void, the same dimension introduced in Season 3, the same dimension that holds everything the world has decided to erase. The episode is flagging its own connection to the larger story before the plot even starts. In the Swedish version of the episode, during the scene where Richard glitches out and begins speaking nonsense, the audio reversed reads as "Det är ju egentligen en bergskedja, men vad fan." In English, this translates loosely to something like, "It is actually a mountain range, but what the heck?" This is a completely different piece of dialogue from anything Richard says in the episode. It is not a translation. It is a separate sentence hidden backwards inside a foreign language dub, discoverable only by a viewer who speaks Swedish, has the episode in that dub, and thinks to reverse the audio. The show did not have to do this. This detail serves no narrative purpose. Nobody in the audience was expected to find it. The writers put it there anyway, in a language most of their viewers would not understand, reversed so it could not be heard normally, tucked inside a glitch sequence in a version of the episode that most viewers would never access. This is what The Amazing World of Gumball did when it was operating at full capacity. It hid things in the places nobody would think to look, for the people patient enough to look there anyway. The Signal connects directly to two later episodes that resolve the thread it opens. The first is The Disaster, the Season 4 finale, where Rob uses a universal remote to rewind the episode past its own title card through the opening credits and back into a previous episode, confirming that the tools of television production are real, physical objects inside Elmore Elmore that can be bought and used and aimed at the fabric of existence. The second is the rerun, the follow-up episode, where Darwin reads the subtitles appearing below Gumball's dialogue and swallows them when Gumball rearranges the letters to send Darwin a message. The subtitles are real inside the world of Elmore. The closed captions are real. The production elements that viewers take for granted as things that exist outside the show are, in Elmore, objects with physical weight and consequence. The Signal is the episode where the show first makes this visible. The satellite interference is not a metaphor for miscommunication, though it works as one. It is a literal description of what is happening. The broadcast signal that carries the show is breaking down, and the characters inside the show are experiencing the breakdown as scrambled dialogue and wrong scenes and a car driving itself through a parking lot. The void is mentioned in connection to the signal in the TV Tropes documentation of the episode. The connection the show draws is this: if Gumball and Darwin ever fully understand that they are inside a television program, the void will destroy Elmore. The universe is trying to prevent them from reaching that understanding. The glitches are not random. The cuts are not accidents. Every time Gumball gets close to saying the thing that would make the truth undeniable, the episode intervenes. The scene changes. The words scatter. The dinner table appears, and the family laughs, and the moment passes. The world of Elmore is protecting its own characters from a knowledge that would end them. The Signal is 11 minutes long. It was episode 140 of the series, airing in April 2016. On IMDb, it holds a rating of 8.6 out of 10. These are the facts of the episode as a piece of television. They are accurate and boring, and they tell almost nothing about what the episode actually is. What the episode actually is a show holding up its own machinery to the light and letting the viewer see the gears while the characters inside cannot. It is Gumball and Darwin in a runaway car with no driver, getting close to a truth the universe will not let them reach, laughing nervously at a dinner table while everyone around them laughs for real. The laugh at the end of The Signal is one of the smallest and most precise moments in the series. Two characters doing what is expected of them in a scene they do not remember being placed in, performing the emotion the scene requires. The episode ends before they can stop performing it. The Signal treated the show's own format as the villain of the episode, the broadcast, the signal, the machinery of television itself, working against the characters who live inside it. Before we move on, if you're enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. The next set of scenes took that premise and handed it a remote control. What Rob did with $12.99 worth of Universal Remote is the moment the Amazing World of Gumball stopped hinting at its own nature and started using it as a weapon. Section 4. The remote that cost $12 and destroyed everything. The awesome store is a van, not a shop, not a building. A van parked in the Elmore Mall parking lot, operated by a single unnamed man who sells things that should not exist to people who do not fully understand what they are buying. The van is not explained. The man is not explained. He appears, sells something world-ending, receives payment, and the show moves on as though this is a normal retail transaction in a normal town. Rob walks up to the van at the start of the disaster. He is already broken. The jagged edges, the glitched body, the voice that comes out slightly wrong no matter what he says. He has been broken since he escaped the void by clinging to the back of Mr. Small's van, and the breaking is permanent, and he has had time to think about who is responsible for it. He has decided, reasonably given the evidence, that Gumball is responsible. Gumball was the one who went into the void and came out again while Rob stayed behind. Gumball was the one who walked past him without hearing him call for help. Gumball, in Rob's understanding, is the reason Rob has a glitched body and a villain's role and a life that was handed to him broken. The man in the van has a universal remote. He is very clear about what the remote is. He says it has a power only a fool would not fear. He says it should not be used for evil. He says all of this while completing the sale, which raises questions about the man in the van that the show never answers and probably never intended to answer. The remote costs $12.99. Rob pays. He picks up the remote. He points it at the van to test it, pressing the power button and the arrow keys. The van spazzes out and crashes. This is when Rob understands what he is holding. The disaster is the season 4 finale, episode 156 of the series overall. It aired as a pair with its follow-up episode, The Rerun, which was technically the 5th episode of season 5, but functioned as the second half of a 2-part story. The pair of episodes is the closest the Amazing World of Gumball ever came to a traditional dramatic climax. A real villain with a real plan plan, causing real, visible damage that the show does not immediately undo. The remote can do the following things, all confirmed by the Gumball Wiki. It can pause, it can rewind, it can fast forward, it can change the channel, it has a subtitles button that makes written captions appear below whatever it is pointed at, it has a language button that changes the language being spoken, it has a zoom button that moves the camera, it has brightness and contrast controls that change the visual quality of the world, it has a volume button and a mute button, it has an eject button, and it has an AV button that opens a portal directly to the void. Every one of these functions is a television remote function. Every one of them in the world of Elmore operates on reality itself. Because reality in Elmore is a television program, and a remote that controls television programs controls everything. Rob spends the first part of the disaster figuring out what the remote can do. He points the eject button at an ATM and money comes out. He activates a sprinkler system. He switches the sun and the moon back and forth between day and night, flipping between them like changing input sources. Then, curious about the full range of what he is holding, he presses rewind. The rewind is the moment that establishes the rules. The world goes backward, Rob moves backward through the episode, the Wattersons unsay the things they said in the car. The title card appears, reversed. The opening credits play in reverse. A Cartoon Network bumper appears, an actual promotional bumper of the kind that plays between shows on the channel, reversed, existing inside the episode as a real object that the rewind passes through. Then the episode goes further back, past the current episode entirely, into a scene from The Nobody, a previous episode set in the void where Gumball and Darwin and Mr. Smaller walking away from Rob's past self as he clings to the van and calls for help. Rob watches himself. He watches the moment that made him what he is. He watches Gumball walk away. Then he fast forwards back to the parking lot and pays the man in the van. The show is doing something very specific with this sequence that is easy to miss because it happens so quickly. By having the rewind move through the title card and the opening credits and the network bumper, the episode confirms that these things, the title card, the credits, the bumper, are physical objects in the world of Elmore. They exist in the space the characters inhabit. They are not outside the story. They are part of the geography. This means the remote is not just a powerful object. It is an object that operates on the show itself. Rob is not rewriting history. Rob is editing the episode. The distinction matters because it means the damage Rob does with the remote is damage done to the fabric of the television program, not just the fictional world inside it. When he pauses Penny mid-kiss with another person, he is not just stopping time. He is freezing a frame. What Rob does to Gumball's life with the remote is methodical. He finds Penny at Laser Video. Penny is Gumball's girlfriend, the relationship that took the entire first 3 seasons of the show to properly begin. The relationship that was established in The Shell when Penny came out of her peanut casing and revealed the shape-shifting creature underneath. Rob pauses her. He changes the subtitles below her dialogue to say something that will hurt Gumball most. He uses the language button to make Gumball's parents argue in a language nobody understands. He uses the rewind to pull Nicole and Richard back through time until they are babies, literal infants in diapers, unable to speak, unable to parent, sitting where the adults used to be. He points the remote at Anais and holds down the rewind. Anais does not get younger. Instead, her arm disappears. The rerun explains this in a line that is easy to miss. Anais exists in the show partly because of Gumball. Her connection to the story runs through him. The further back the remote pushes, the further toward a time before Gumball's story made space for her, the less she exists. Her arm goes first, then her other limbs. Darwin picks up what is left of her and throws her at Rob, and she bites his arm with whatever she has left before fading from existence entirely. Gumball and Darwin stand over the place where Anais was. They are crying. Then they stand up, and they are not crying anymore. And Darwin says something about having had a sister, using the past tense with the blankness of someone who is trying to remember a fact that has already started blurring at the edges. They cannot fully grieve Anais because they are already beginning to forget her. This is the Void's logic, applied through a different tool. The remote does not send Anais to the Void. It erases her from the timeline instead. The result is the same, a gap where a person used to be, and the people closest to her already starting to fold the memory over. Darwin goes next. Without his legs, which Rob removes with a fast forward that ages only the lower half of Darwin's body into nothing, he reverts to a size closer to what he was when Richard bought him from a pet store. He suffocates. Gumball barely has time to register this before Rob ejects him to the edge of the Void's portal and then throws the remote in after him. Gumball has no choice. choice. He goes in after the remote. The end credits begin playing on the other side of the closing portal, over the static of the void, as Gumball falls through the nothing. The rerun begins with the Wattersons in the car singing the same song from the start of the disaster. Gumball is the only one who knows it has happened before. He has the remote. He rewound his way out of the void by catching it as he fell, putting the battery back in after it came loose in the fall, and pressing rewind while still in the static. The rewind brought him back to the beginning of the disaster. He is the only person in Elmore who remembers what just happened, which means he is in the specific position of a person who has lived through a disaster that no one around him knows occurred. He does not panic. He is Gumball Watterson, which means his response to being the only person alive with knowledge of an event that erased his entire family is to tell Darwin immediately. Prove it by predicting which video game Darwin will pick from the discount bin at Laser Video, and begin trying to outmaneuver Rob in a timeline Rob does not yet know has been rewound. The rerun has fourth wall moments stacked on top of each other. Darwin accidentally swallows the subtitles that Rob puts below Gumball's dialogue after Gumball rearranges the letters to send Darwin a warning. Rob presses eject and Banana Joe explodes. The zoom button is pressed and the camera, the actual camera filming the episode, swings into Rob and Gumball and hits them both. Rob changes the brightness of the world. He changes the aspect ratio. The bars at the top and bottom of the screen move. At one point during the fight, Rob mutes all sound. The episode continues in complete silence for several seconds, with characters clearly still speaking and moving and reacting, all of it completely silent, before Gumball points the remote at Rob and presses mute again to undo it. This is a children's cartoon that used television production controls as action sequence moves. The resolution of the disaster in the rerun is the part that most analysis of the episode skips over, because the resolution is quieter and sadder than the chaos that precedes it. Gumball sends Rob into the void. He wins. He stands over the portal and realizes he could leave Rob there, the villain defeated, the remote in hand, everything fixable. He goes into the void after Rob instead. He pulls Rob back out. Rob, sitting at the edge of the static, waiting to be erased again, looks at Gumball and asks why he did that. Gumball does not have a clean answer. He just did not want Rob to be in there. That is the whole of it. Rob understands something in this moment that Gumball does not. Gumball will not remember any of this. If Rob rewinds the timeline to before the disaster, to the van, to the moment before the remote was used, Gumball will go back to being the person who does not know Rob's name. The friendship that has just barely begun to form will be erased, along with everything else. Rob will be the only one who remembers it happened. Rob rewinds anyway. He destroys the remote in the parking lot of the Elmore Mall. The van is back. The man is back. The $12.99 price tag is back. The Wattersons drive past in the background singing their song, happy, intact, with no idea that their family was just unmade and rebuilt in the space of 2 11-minute episodes. Rob stands in the parking lot alone, holding the pieces of a destroyed remote. The only person in Elmore who knows what just happened and what it cost. The episode ends there. The disaster and the rerun are the most structurally ambitious thing the Amazing World of Gumball ever attempted. They are episodes about editing, about what it means to be able to rewind and pause and eject the moments of your life, and whether any of that control is worth anything when the things you undo are also the things you cannot keep. Rob gave up the only real connection he made in the series to give it back to Gumball, who did not know he had it in the first place. The remote cost $12.99. What Rob spent to destroy it did not have a price tag. Before we move on, if you're enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. The remote was the most direct tool the show ever used to expose the mechanics of its own world. But there is a category of scene that does something different, that takes the show's format and uses it not as a weapon or a plot device, but as a punchline about consequences. The finale is the episode where every person in Elmore came to collect what the Wattersons owed them, and the only way out was a button that should not exist in a real universe, but works perfectly in a cartoon one. Section 5. The day Elmore sent the Wattersons the bill. The episode begins exactly the way a clip show begins. The Wattersons are on the couch. Nicole has found the family photo album in the attic. Everyone leans in. The photos show scenes from previous episodes. The flooded house from The Responsible. The various disasters and near misses and chaos events that accumulate accumulated across 2 seasons of television. The family laughs at their own memories. The music is warm, the framing is comfortable. Every visual signal the show sends in the first 90 seconds of the finale says, "This is the part where we look back at all the fun we had." Then Aeneas notices something. She says it casually, almost as an aside, that it is strange they were not more hurt after falling from the height they fell from in The Responsible. Richard agrees and adds that he has been in prison multiple times, and it is strange how that works, because one moment he is in there, and then he is just not in there anymore. Gumball looks at the family photo album and notices that the Wattersons look different in the older photos. Their faces are shaped differently, their proportions have changed, their design has shifted in ways that would be impossible for a real family to shift between one year and the next. The show is not being subtle. These are not clues planted for attentive viewers. These are the characters of the Amazing World of Gumball sitting on their couch and describing out loud the mechanics of how cartoons work. Reset buttons, consequence-free disasters, characters who look different between seasons because the animation style changed. The Wattersons are doing what no cartoon family had really done before, noticing that they are a cartoon family. This is when the doorbell rings, and the people of Elmore start arriving to collect. The finale is Season 2, Episode 40. It is the last episode of Season 2 and functions as a season finale. It is structured as a parody of both clip show episodes, the kind where a show recaps its own history through flashbacks, and series finale episodes, the kind where consequences pile up and characters reckon with everything that came before. The premise is clean and merciless. Every person, institution, and piece of Elmore that the Wattersons have wronged across 2 seasons of television has decided, simultaneously, to do something about it. They arrive one after another. They have bills, they have lawsuits, they have criminal charges, they have the specific energy of people who have been patient for a very long time and are done being patient. The list of grievances is real and specific. These are not invented complaints for the purpose of this episode. Every item on the list references an actual event from an actual previous episode. The house was flooded in The Responsible. Richard drove a bus in a previous episode and caused damage. Various people were hurt or inconvenienced, or property was destroyed. Across dozens of situations the show treated as funny at the time and is now treating as a ledger. The world of Elmore has been keeping score. The Wattersons did not know this. The viewer did not know this either, because cartoons do not usually keep score. Cartoons reset. Every episode ends and the next episode begins from the same starting position, no matter what happened in between. The flooded house is repaired. The prison time is served. The damages are absorbed. The status quo reasserts itself, clean and ready for the next 11 minutes. The finale is the episode where the show looks directly at that convention and asks what would happen if it stopped. The answer is that the Wattersons would be in serious trouble very quickly. The charges accumulate faster than the episode can list them. Property damage, assault in various forms, the flooding, the driving incidents. Mr. Small arrives and announces that he is suing them for the claustrophobia he developed after Darwin and Gumball shoved him inside an envelope and tried to mail him to the smallest country in the world in this very episode, which makes the finale a rare case where a consequence arrives for something done within the same episode that is listing consequences. The family ends up in court, then in prison. Richard explains his relationship with prison with the same calm he applies to everything. He gets put in, and then he is just not in there anymore. This is not presented as a superpower or a mystery. It is presented as a fact about how Richard experiences consequence, which is to say, he does not experience it at all, because the show has never required him to. The prison does not hold him because it has never needed to hold him. He exists in a world where the walls of the cell are only as solid as the narrative requires them to be. Nicole, meanwhile, manages to get the family out through a combination of martial ability and the specific, focused fury that defines her when her family is threatened. She kisses a prisoner who helps them escape and then crushes his hand when he throws Richard through a wall, which is a sequence of events that says everything about Nicole's relationship to gratitude and proportionality. They escape. They make it home. They think it is over. It is not over. The whole of Elmore arrives at the Watterson house. Not some of Elmore, not the people with the strongest grievances or the most recent injuries. Everyone. Every background character. Every recurring face. Every person the show has ever put in a scene in the vicinity of something the Wattersons did that caused damage. They come from every direction. They surround the house. Their expressions are unified in the way that crowds in cartoons become unified when a situation has reached its final stage. Gumball stands on the porch and looks at the assembled population of Elmore and says the only thing thing he can think of. He says, "Their last hope is a reality reset button." The episode cuts to black. The finale ends there. No resolution shown, no reset button pressed on screen, no explanation of what happens next. The episode simply stops, mid-crisis, with the Wattersons surrounded and Gumball having named the only exit available. Season 3 begins from the normal starting position. The house is intact, the charges are gone. The people of Elmore have returned to their regular behavior. Richard is unemployed and content. The reset worked, presumably, the way resets always work in cartoons, completely, and without evidence that anything happened at all, except for one thing. Gumball and Darwin's voices are different in Season 3. The actors who voiced them, Logan Grove as Gumball and Kwesi Boachi as Darwin, were replaced because their voices had changed as they grew older. The new voices are noticeably different. The show acknowledges this in the Season 3 premiere, an episode called The Kids, which is structured entirely around Gumball and Darwin's voices breaking and changing, and what that means for who they are becoming. The reality reset button reset everything, except the one thing that cannot be reset. The boys grew up. That stayed. The finale ends with a reality reset, and Season 3 begins with the single consequence that the reset could not reach. The fourth wall mechanics in the finale are more layered than they appear on first watch. The episode does what it does with complete awareness of what a clip show is supposed to accomplish and why.
Clip shows exist because making an episode out of existing footage is cheaper and faster than making a new episode. They are a production decision dressed as a narrative one, a behind-the-scenes reality bleeding into the show itself. The finale parodies this by making the clip show the setup for a story about consequences, which means the episode is using the format that exists to avoid consequences as the vehicle for an episode about what happens when consequences arrive. Anais breaks the fourth wall early in the episode by mentioning that the family has worn the same clothes for a year. This is noted in the official Gumball wiki as a direct reference to both the cartoon convention of characters wearing the same outfit in every episode and the specific fact that the show had been running for 1 year at the time the episode was made. Anais is not just making a joke about her family's wardrobe. She is timestamping the episode within the production history of the show itself. Gumball notices the family looks different in the old photos. This is an acknowledgement of the art style change between Season 1 and Season 2. The Wattersons were drawn with slightly different proportions in the first season, and the shift was visible enough that viewers noticed and commented on it. The show's response to this real production change was to put it in the mouth of a character and let him find it strange. Richard's relationship to consequence, the being put in prison and then just not being in there anymore, is the most direct the show ever gets about the mechanics of cartoon reset culture. It is not framed as a supernatural ability or a quirk of Elmore's reality. It is framed as a simple observation about how Richard has always experienced the world. He has never faced a consequence that stuck because the show has never written one that needed to stick. The finale is the episode where the show wonders what would happen if it changed that rule, runs the experiment, and then resets back to the original setting by the time the credits are over. The experiment produces a mob. The reset produces Season 3. Both outcomes are honest. The finale works because it takes the laziest format in television, the clip show, and uses it to say something true about the nature of the show it is part of. Cartoons do not have consequences because consequences would end them. The Wattersons have been flooding houses and crashing vehicles and mailing their guidance counselor to Vatican City for 2 seasons precisely because they live in a world that wipes the slate between episodes. The finale is the episode where Elmore stops wiping the slate and simply presents the full tally. The tally is enormous. The reset is necessary. The reset works. And the show continues. What makes the finale strange and specific and worth sitting with is not the chaos of the mob or the clip show framing or even the cut to black ending. It is the moment before all of that. The moment on the couch with the photo album, when the Wattersons notice the things about their life that do not make sense for a real family and make perfect sense for a cartoon one. The flooded house that repaired itself. The prison that releases without process. The faces that changed between photographs because the people drawing them made a different choice about how to draw them. In that moment, the Wattersons are as close as they ever get to understanding what they are. They are sitting on a couch looking at evidence of their own fictional nature and finding it mildly interesting rather than terrifying. They do not have the framework to be terrified. The terror would require knowing what the void is, and Season 2 has not introduced the void yet. And even if it had, the Wattersons are not the kind of family that stays scared for long. They laugh at at the photo album. The doorbell rings. Elmore arrives. The reset button exists. The show confirmed this by pressing it between the last frame of the finale and the first frame of Season 3. The button works. Whatever Gumball meant when he said it, whatever the mechanics of a reality reset are in a world where remote controls can eject characters to the edge of the void and tinfoil hats are the only thing standing between a person and enforced amnesia, the reset is real and accessible, and the show used it without showing it being pressed. This means that somewhere between Season 2 and Season 3, Gumball pressed a button that erased what an entire town remembered. He did it to save his family. He does not remember doing it. The button is gone. The mob is gone. The bills are gone. Only the voices remain different because the reset could not reach the real world. And in the real world, two boys grew up. The finale is about what cartoons owe the worlds they create. The answer the show gives is everything and nothing in the same breath. The Wattersons owe Elmore an accounting that would end them. The show owes its characters a reset that lets them continue. Both debts are paid simultaneously, and the only thing that survives the transaction is the growth that happened in the real world on the other side of the screen. The signal broke the show's own broadcast. The disaster put a remote control in a villain's hands. The finale sent a bill for everything. Before we move on, if you're enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. Each of these episodes exposed a different layer of what Elmore actually is, but none of them went as far as The Downer, an episode that took the idea of a character's inner world and made it the only world, stripped Elmore of every other person, filled the empty streets with darkness, and then revealed that the entire catastrophe had been happening inside one child's head while his family stood next to him the whole time. Section 6. The empty world inside Gumball's head. The episode does not start with a mystery. It starts with banging on a door. Richard is out there. Darwin is out there. Nicole is out there. Anais is out there. All four of them in the hallway outside Gumball's bedroom, each with a different reason they need him right now. Darwin wants to practice wheelbarrow racing for the county fair because Gumball promised. Richard wants Gumball to vacuum the house because Nicole asked Richard to do it, and Richard has decided to redirect this request. Nicole wants to try makeup on Gumball's face to see how it would look on her own face, which is a sentence that makes complete sense within the specific logic of Nicole Watterson. Anais wants to be taught the 7 pressure point heart disintegrating move so she can use it on a kid who pushed her off a seesaw. All of this is happening simultaneously. All four of them are banging and calling and overlapping each other in the hallway while Gumball lies in bed on the other side of the door. He yells, "No." They come in anyway. They find him in bed, face arranged into something that the show describes as his grouchy face, and he tells them he is in a bad mood. His family immediately begins trying to cheer him up by touching him repeatedly, which makes the bad mood worse. Anais gasps and points out that he is in such a bad mood he cannot even finish his sarcastic comeback. He started one and stopped mid-sentence, which for Gumball is a genuine sign of distress. Everyone makes a sympathetic sound and pats him some more. He yells at them to go away and leave him in peace. He looks up. They are gone. This is the moment the Downer makes its first move, and it makes it quietly enough that a viewer moving at normal speed might absorb it as a straight result of Gumball's wish. He wanted them gone. They are gone. Cartoon logic applied cleanly. The family disappears and the episode begins. What the episode does not tell the viewer, not yet, not for a long time, is that the family did not actually go anywhere. Gumball gets out of bed. He checks the house. He calls for his family. He looks in each room with the specific energy of someone who is mostly relieved but performing concern because relief would require admitting he wanted this. The house is empty. He goes outside. The street is empty. He walks further. The whole neighborhood is empty. He walks to the center of Elmore and stands in the middle of a street that has no traffic and calls out and gets nothing back. Everyone in Elmore is gone. The bad mood, which started as an inexplicable cloud over one 12-year-old cat's mourning, has apparently consumed an entire town. The Downer is Season 3, Episode 37, Episode 113 of the series overall. It aired in 2015. On IMDb, it holds a rating of 8.4. According to the official Gumball Wiki, the episode underwent a significant rewrite because the original draft was deemed too dark by the creative team. The original draft is confirmed to exist, or to have existed, but no script, storyboard, or footage from it has surfaced publicly. The only confirmation of its existence is a conversation Ben Bacale had on Twitter with a fan, in which he acknowledged that the early version was considerably darker and that the rewrite happened because of it. The version that aired is already genuinely strange. What the original version contained is unknown. The fact that the aired version version, which includes a sentient mass of darkness consuming the world and a child alone in an abyss, was considered the lighter edit, says something about where the writers started. Gumball's response to being the only person in Elmore is not immediate panic. This is one of the most carefully observed things the episode does. His first response is closer to tentative relief. He is in a bad mood. The people around him were making the bad mood worse with their noise and their needs and their collective refusal to let him be miserable in peace. Now they are gone, and it is quiet, and he can be miserable by himself, which is what he said he wanted. He walks through the empty town and does the things a person does when they have a space entirely to themselves. He stands in the middle of an intersection and spreads his arms out. He wanders into a store. He pretends to be a monster destroying a city, a toy city he finds somewhere, with tiny figures inside it, while Mussorgsky's Night on Bald Mountain plays behind him. He is having some version of fun. The fun has the specific hollow quality of fun that exists in the absence of someone to share it with, but he is not ready to admit that yet. The signs and billboards around Elmore begin to change. Joyful Burger becomes Misery Burger. A Captain Crunch billboard becomes Captain Crud. The economy collapses. This is listed among the changed signs, placed after the food references in a sequence designed so that the economy collapsing reads as the least surprising item on the list. Gumball sees this and notes it with the mild acknowledgement of someone who finds the collapsing economy the most expected development of the morning. This is the show using Gumball's bad mood as a physical force that reshapes the environment around him. The world of Elmore is not just responding to his emotions. The world of Elmore is his emotions, made visible, spread across every surface of a town that has nobody in it but him. The darkness arrives without warning. One moment, Gumball is walking through the empty streets. The next moment, something is behind him. Not a character, not a villain with a name and a plan. A mass, a shadow, a thing made of the specific quality of darkness that exists when a bad feeling stops being a mood and starts being a presence. It moves toward him. It does not rush. It has the patience of something that knows it will reach its destination eventually. Gumball runs. The darkness follows. It moves through Elmore the way a bad mood moves through a day. Not chasing exactly, but closing in from every direction, covering surfaces, changing the light. It goes over the paintings on walls, and the paintings change to reflect it, becoming darker versions of themselves. The family portrait in the Watterson living room shifts into something that resembles Edvard Munch's The Scream, the famous painting of a figure with its mouth open in anguish on a bridge with a blood-red sky behind it. The show named this reference directly in the episode's wiki documentation. One painting does not change. There is a painting of a sad bunny that has been on the wall of the Watterson house in the background of various episodes. The darkness goes over it and it stays exactly the same. Gumball looks at it and notes that the painting was already pretty scary to begin with. The joke lands because it is true. The sad bunny painting has always been slightly unnerving in the way that certain pieces of background art in cartoons accumulate a strange quality from appearing in so many different scenes. And because finding the one moment of normalcy in the middle of an encroaching void and recognizing it as something that was already dark is a very Gumball way of processing a crisis. The darkness covers everything. Gumball cannot see. He is in a complete abyss. No floor, no walls, no light, no Elmore. Just the nothing and him standing in it. He stops running. He tries to remember what Richard told him at the beginning of the episode. Richard, in the brief window before the family was sent away, gave Gumball advice about bad moods. Richard's advice was not sophisticated. Richard's advice is never sophisticated, but it was genuine, which, in the world of the Amazing World of Gumball, frequently matters more than sophistication. Richard said something about how he gets through bad moods. He said something about finding a reason to smile that is already right there, already close, already in reach. Gumball, alone in the abyss, tries to hold on to this. Darwin appears. The darkness retreats. Elmore comes back. The Downer has one of the most carefully constructed endings in the series. Gumball and Darwin walk away from the house together. The bad mood has lifted. Elmore is back. Gumball is okay. The episode appears to be resolving in the warm and slightly vague way that episodes about emotional states often resolve. The feeling passed. The character learned something. Forward motion resumes. Anais turns to Nicole. She asks if they should tell him something. Nicole is about to answer. Before she can, the episode cuts to a flashback. The flashback is not from inside Gumball's experience of the episode. It is from outside it. It shows what was actually happening in Elmore while Gumball believed he was the only person there. The street is full. The mall is busy. Richard is at the gas station station. Nicole is running errands. Darwin is in the park. The neighbors are in their yards. All of the empty spaces in Gumball's experience of the morning are, in the flashback, full of the exact people he believed had disappeared. Gumball was not alone. Elmore was not empty. The darkness was not real in any physical sense. He walked through a full town, past people going about their normal morning, and he did not see any of them because his bad mood had become so complete that it turned the people around him invisible to him. He was grieving the loss of everyone while everyone stood next to him. He was running from a darkness that existed only in the space between what he felt and what was actually there. The episode ends before Nicole can answer Anais' question about whether to tell him. Gumball never finds out. The Downer belongs to a specific category of episode within the Amazing World of Gumball that takes an emotional reality and makes it a physical one. The empty world is not a supernatural event. The darkness is not a creature from another dimension. The changed billboards and the empty streets and the abyss at the end, all of it is the inside of Gumball's head projected outward onto a world that was never actually empty, experienced as real by a character who had no way to know the difference. This is the episode Ben Bacalé confirmed needed a significant rewrite because the original was too dark. The version that made it to air lands softly enough. The hallucination is revealed, the reset is implicit, Gumball walks away okay. The original version went somewhere the creative team decided was too far for the show to take at that point in its run. What the rewrite preserved is worth noting. The episode kept the darkness as a physical thing. It kept the world emptying out. It kept Gumball alone in the abyss, with nothing but a piece of advice from his father and the memory of his family. These are the elements that make the Downer genuinely heavy under its cartoon surface. The lighter version of the episode is still an episode about a child whose inner state became so consuming that it erased the real world from his perception and replaced it with a version that matched how he felt. The Gumball wiki notes that it is unknown how Gumball failed to notice any of the people around him during the episode. The show does not explain the mechanics. The hallucination is total and unbroken. He moves through a town full of people for the entirety of the episode without registering any of them. Whatever mechanism produces this, the show treats it as a given. Some bad moods work that way. Some bad moods are so complete that the world outside them stops being visible. Gumball sings a song during the empty Elmore sequence. The song is called Life Can Make You Smile, and it is a parody of Pharrell Williams' Happy, played at a slightly slower tempo, with lyrics about trying to find reasons to be cheerful while also honestly listing the reasons that is difficult. He sings it directly to the camera, breaking the fourth wall in the way the Downer does specifically. Not to expose the show's mechanics the way the Signal does, but in the way a person sometimes speaks directly to another person because the room they are in is empty and they need to feel like someone is listening. The song is genuinely trying. That is the most accurate way to describe it. Gumball is in the middle of a hallucination that has emptied his world, and he is making the effort to find the things worth smiling about, listing them out loud to no one. Working through the exercise his father suggested, with the specific determination of someone who does not fully believe it will help, but is going to try anyway. Some of the things on his list are good. Some of them immediately generate a complication. He likes orange juice, but just brushed his teeth, so the taste is unpleasant. He loves the smell of flowers, but is allergic to pollen. He enjoys video games, but they hurt his thumbs after an hour. The show does not resolve these complications into an uplifting conclusion. The song ends with Gumball still working through it, still in the empty Elmore, still trying. Darwin appears. The darkness leaves. The song was not pointless. The Downer is the only episode in the series confirmed to have a lost original draft that was rejected for being too dark, with the creator himself acknowledging this on record. The episode that replaced it is strange and sad and funny in the particular ratio the show managed better than almost any other animated series of its era. It takes the inside of a 12-year-old's head seriously enough to give it its own geography. Empty streets, changed signs, a mass of darkness with enough patience to wait, and then reveals that all of that geography was built on top of a world that was full and warm and present the whole time. The only thing that was missing was Gumball's ability to see it. Before we move on, if you're enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. The Downer put the darkness inside a single character's perception and left it there, private and unshared until the very last frames. The puppets did something different. The darkness in that episode came from outside, from 3 puppet toys that had been waiting in an attic for 7 years years, keeping track of every indignity, ready to trap the boys who forgot them in a world made of their own specific idea of fun. That episode did not reach into Gumball's head. It built its own world and pulled him into it. And the people who built that world had made something called Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared. And what they brought to a children's cartoon was exactly as strange as that sounds. Section 7. The puppets that came back from the trash. The attic scene at the start of The Puppets is completely normal. Gumball and Darwin are packing old things into boxes for a garage sale. This is a domestic chore. It happens in real families. It produces the specific feeling of going through old objects and finding things that used to matter and trying to remember exactly when they stopped mattering and why. Old toys, old games, the particular archaeology of a childhood being sorted into keep and discard piles. Darwin finds a digital pet at the bottom of a box, the small handheld device with a tiny screen that was popular in the late 90s and early 2000s, where a pixelated creature lived inside and needed to be fed and cleaned and kept alive through button presses. Darwin thinks the battery has died. He tosses it back into the box. As he does, the screen lights up. 2 words appear on it. Clean me. Darwin does not notice. The show moves on. The detail sits there unacknowledged. A small piece of wrongness in an otherwise ordinary attic scene. Then Darwin finds the puppets. There are 3 of them: Frank, Grady, and Howdy. They are hand puppets, the kind that fit over a hand and are operated by moving fingers inside them. They are colorful and slightly worn, and they have the specific quality of old toys that have been in a box for a long time, which is a quality that sits somewhere between comforting and unsettling, depending on the light. Darwin remembers them immediately and completely. The joy on his face is genuine and unguarded. These are old friends, or the closest thing to old friends that a puppet can be, and he has not thought about them in years. And now here they are, and something in him that has been quietly missing them reconnects. He puts them on his hands, he starts talking to them, he does the voices. Gumball is less enthusiastic. He watches Darwin walk around the house with the puppets on his hands for the rest of the day. He watches Darwin eat with them on. He watches Darwin take them into the bathroom. He listens to Darwin have conversations with them, using a slightly different voice for each puppet, the way a person does when they have committed to the bit beyond the point where stopping would feel natural. He watches this for long enough to decide that something is wrong with the situation and the puppets need to go. He pulls them off Darwin's hands. Darwin protests. Gumball throws them in the trash. That night, the trash moves. Frank and Howdy pull themselves out of the bin. They drag Grady back into the house. Frank says, in the flat and cheerful tone that will define the puppet segment of the episode, that the bedroom is upstairs so they can go and kill Gumball. This sentence is played entirely straight. No musical sting, no reaction shot. Frank says it the way someone would say any logistical fact about a house they are navigating for the first time, and the episode moves forward. The Puppets is Season 5, Episode 40. It is the 40th and final episode of Season 5, making it the Season 5 finale. It is episode 196 of the series overall. The episode was made in collaboration with Blink Industries, the production company run by Rebecca Sloan and Joseph Pelling, the creators of Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared. Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared is a web series that ran from 2011 to 2016 across 6 episodes. Each episode follows the same structure. Cheerful puppet characters are taught a lesson by a talking object, a notebook, a clock, a computer, and the lesson gradually becomes more disturbing until the episode ends in something that looks like psychological horror. The puppets in Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared are colorful and friendly looking. The content they deliver is not. The show became well known for using the visual language of children's educational programming to explore ideas about control, creativity, conformity, and the way cheerful surfaces can contain very dark interiors. The official Gumball wiki confirms that Rebecca Sloan and Joseph Pelling served as co-writers on the puppets. Baker Terry, a writer on Gumball, voiced both Frank and Grady. Sloan voiced Howdy. The puppet segment of the episode, the section that takes place inside the puppet world, took 3 months to make, not counting pre-production, storyboarding, and the design work that came before filming began. 3 months. For the final portion of an 11-minute episode of a children's cartoon. The investment is visible in every frame of what they made. The shift happens when Gumball puts on one of the puppets to mock the way they move. He is trying to demonstrate to Darwin that the puppets are not real, that the voices Darwin heard were Darwin's own voices, that there is nothing in these objects worth being attached to. He slips one over his hand. He does an impression of the stiff, slightly jerky way puppets move when someone is operating them without full commitment. He is being dismissive. The world changes. Not dramatically, not with a flash of light or a sound effect that announces a transition. The animation around Gumball shifts. The bright, clean lines of Gumball's normal world are replaced by something textured and physical. Real fabric, real felt, real materials with weight and depth, lit with the specific quality of light that falls on physical objects rather than drawn ones. Gumball is still Gumball, rendered in his usual style, but the world around him has become a puppet world. He is inside it. Darwin is already there. Darwin is a puppet now. Not a different character, but Darwin rendered in felt and fabric. His goldfish features translated into craft materials, sitting in a space that is made of the same stuff he is now made of. Frank and Grady and Howdy are there too, and in their own world, they are different. They are not worn and slightly faded the way they looked in the attic box. They are present and deliberate and completely in control of the environment Gumball has just entered. Grady speaks first. He says that the boys always used to play with them. He says now it is the puppets' turn to play with the boys. He says to play along and not make a fuss, and they will come up with things to do. The song begins. The song is called The Fun Will Never End. The chorus repeats the title. The fun will never end. It repeats it with the specific persistence of something that does not care whether the listener is enjoying themselves, because the announcement that fun is happening is being treated as equivalent to fun actually happening. If the song says it is fun, it is fun. The song says it constantly. The verses list the activities that constitute this endless fun. Wearing a hat, or wearing no hat, or wearing two hats at once if preferred, though the song immediately clarifies that there are only two hats, so those are the only options. Organizing a spoon. A single spoon, organized, for reasons the song does not explain and does not need to explain, because the song is not interested in reasons. Counting to 7. Frank announces that 7 is the funnest number. The show's documentation confirms that 7 was chosen specifically because the puppets had been alone for 7 years. The number is not arbitrary. It is the specific number of years they spent in that attic box waiting, standing in a favorite corner. The song invites Darwin and Gumball to go to their favorite corner. Neither of them has a favorite corner. The song does not acknowledge this. The activities escalate in a direction that the word escalate does not quite cover. They are forced to eat from bowls. The bowls contain grease. The bowls contain toenails. They are made to fight each other. They are dressed in an itchy fleece and required to wear it. All of this is delivered in the same cheerful register as the hat options and the spoon and the counting to 7. The song does not change its tone to reflect the content changing. The Fun Will Never End plays at the same pitch over bowls of toenails as it did over the hat announcement. Darwin and Gumball are clearly not having fun. The song accounts for this. At certain points in the lyrics, voices that sound like Darwin and Gumball appear in the song itself, saying things like, "I don't know what's going on," and "I'm not sure this is that fun." These lines are absorbed into the song's structure without interrupting it. The song has already anticipated the objection and built the response into its own chorus. The response is the chorus. The fun will never end. Your uncertainty about whether this is fun does not change the fact that it is fun. The song has decided. The tree of permanent happiness appears in the puppet world. The tree is a background element, a large, smiling tree that stands in the puppet world's landscape as a piece of set dressing, the kind of cheerful environmental detail that shows up in educational programming to make the setting feel warm and welcoming. The tree has a smile painted on its face. The smile is fixed. The tree says, in a voice that does not match the smile, "I wish I could feel other things." The line is not followed by anything. The tree says it, and the scene continues. The tree's wish goes unacknowledged by the characters and unaddressed by the plot. The tree exists in permanent happiness and wishes it could feel something else, and will never get that wish, because it is the tree of permanent happiness, and that is its role, and its role does not include the option of a different emotion. The Gumball Wiki documents this character as a Stepford Smiler, a term for a character who presents a consistently happy exterior while experiencing something entirely different underneath. The tree is the most compressed version of this idea the episode contains. Everything in the puppet world smiles. Nothing in the puppet world is okay. Darwin defeats the puppets by pulling a thread. He notices a loose thread on Grady's left arm. He pulls it. The arm comes undone. He pulls Howdy's left eye out. He tears Frank's torso apart. The puppets scream. Their world explodes. Grady announces, as the explosion happens around him, that he will have his revenge. This is a children's cartoon. The villain's defeat comes from a child noticing a structural weakness and exploiting it, pulling the thread that holds the threatening thing together until it comes undone. The method of defeat is as literal as everything else in the episode. The puppets are held together by stitching. Pull the right stitch, and they fall apart. Back in the real animated world, Gumball and Darwin sit on the porch during the garage sale. The old toys are out on the table. A child named Billy stops by. Nicole asks the boys if they are okay with her giving away the old toys. Gumball and Darwin both say, yeah, pretty sure. Grady attacks Billy. This is the final image of the episode. Not a resolution, not a lesson learned, not a warm ending where the threat is neutralized and the world returns to normal. The threat has attached itself to a new child. Gumball and Darwin watch this happen, and the episode ends. They said they were pretty sure. They were not sure enough. The Puppets was made by the creators of Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared for the Season 5 finale of a children's cartoon, and the result sits in a specific place that is hard to categorize. It is not as intense as Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared, which, by its 6th episode, had gone to places that genuinely disturbed its adult audience. The Gumball context softens it. The presence of Gumball and Darwin, with their specific voices and their specific dynamic, pulls the puppet world toward the show they live in rather than the show their tormentors came from. But it is darker than a typical Gumball episode. The toenails and the grease are real within the logic of the segment. The tree's wish is real. The song's refusal to acknowledge that anyone is suffering is real. The puppet world does not pretend to be friendly in the way the show usually pretends. It announces that it is friendly and produces evidence to the contrary and keeps announcing it regardless of what the evidence shows. The fan nickname for the episode, documented on TV Tropes, is Don't Hug Me, I'm Gumball. Some fans call it Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared episode 6.5, placing it as an entry in that series rather than a guest appearance within Gumball. Both names recognize the same thing. For the final portion of The Puppets, The Amazing World of Gumball handed its own episode to a different creative team and let that team make something that did not fully belong to either show. The result is an episode that exists between two worlds. Not fully Gumball, not fully Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared. Something made in the gap between them, with the specific quality of things that come from gaps, slightly uncategorizable, slightly uncomfortable, memorable in a way that is difficult to trace back to a single source. The puppets are back in the attic, or they are with Billy. The episode is not specific about which. Before we move on, if you're enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. The Puppets built its horror out of cheerfulness, a song that will not stop, a tree that cannot stop smiling, a fun that will never end. The episode that closes this video built its horror differently. The Inquisition did not use puppets or static or a reality warping remote. It used a man, a real live-action human man who walked into a cartoon school and started turning the cartoon out of the people inside it. And the show's argument was that this was the most frightening thing that could happen to a world like Elmore. Not a villain with a plan, but a force that wanted everything to be normal and was very patient about making it so. Section 8. The man who came to make everything normal. Superintendent Evil arrives at Elmore Junior High on a perfectly ordinary morning. He is wearing a suit. He has a briefcase. He has the haircut and posture of someone who works in administration. The kind of person who shows up at schools to check that things are being done correctly, that standards are being met, that the institution is functioning within acceptable boundaries. He introduces himself to Principal Brown with the calm authority of someone whose position makes argument pointless. He is a superintendent. He is here to conduct an inspection. These are facts. The inspection will begin now. Principal Brown, who is a walking nervous system in the shape of a brown blob, immediately begins to panic in the specific way he always panics when someone with more authority than him appears. He straightens things. He apologizes for things that do not need apologizing for. He tries to make Elmore Junior High look like a school that a superintendent would approve of, which is a task that was always going to be difficult given that the school contains a living piece of toast, a ghost girl, a balloon boy, a T-Rex, and a cactus person who cries when he is touched. Superintendent Evil looks at all of this with an expression that does not change. His plan is already in motion before anyone in the building understands what his plan is. The Inquisition is Season 6, Episode 44. It is the 44th and final episode of Season 6, and the final episode of The Amazing World of Gumball as a series. It aired in June 2019. 2015. The show had been running since May 2011. 8 years of Elmore, 6 seasons, 240 episodes. The Inquisition was the last one. The episode was not designed to feel like a series finale in the traditional sense. There is no graduation sequence, no montage of memories, no moment where the characters turn to the camera and acknowledge that something is ending. The Inquisition is structured as a regular episode of the show that happens to be doing something regular episodes do not do, ending on a cliffhanger that the show explicitly labels with the words "to be continued" for a continuation that would not arrive for 6 years. What the episode does instead of a traditional finale is use its final 11 minutes to make an argument. The argument is about what Elmore is, what threatens it, and why the thing threatening it looks the way it does. Superintendent Evil's method is simple. He has a device. The device looks like a standard piece of office equipment, the kind of thing that sits on an administrator's desk without drawing attention. When pointed at one of Elmore Junior High's students and activated, it removes the cartoon from them. This is not a metaphor. The effect is visible and immediate. A student who was, one moment, a living balloon, round, yellow, bouncing slightly with every movement, becomes, the next moment, a human child. Flesh and blood and skin, with a face that has the slightly blank quality of a person who has just been fundamentally altered and has not yet understood what was taken from them. They look around. They look at their hands. They look like someone who has woken up in the wrong body because the body they had before has been removed. Superintendent Evil moves through the school methodically. He is not cruel about it. He does not gloat. He does not make speeches about what he is doing or why. He just moves from student to student with his device, turning cartoons into humans with the efficient calm of someone completing a task on a checklist. And the school fills up with confused human children who are wearing the clothes their cartoon selves wore but have lost everything that made them what they were. Gumball watches this happen. The specific horror of the sequence, and it is horror in the same way the puppet world in The Puppets was horror dressed in a different costume, is in the gap between what Superintendent Evil looks like and what he is doing. He looks like a school inspector doing his job. He looks like the most normal person who has ever walked into Elmore Junior High. He looks like exactly the kind of person who should be allowed into a school without question, and the show uses that normalcy as the most effective disguise the show ever put on a threat. Miss Simeon betrays Principal Brown. This detail is worth pausing on because Miss Simeon has been in the show since the first episode. She is Elmore Junior High's teacher, an ancient ape who has been teaching the same class for hundreds of years, who despises Gumball with a specific and personal intensity, who is in a relationship with Principal Brown that the show has depicted across dozens of episodes as complicated and genuine beneath its surface. She has been a recurring antagonist, a reluctant ally, and occasionally something close to a human being in the moments the show granted her. She sides with Superintendent Evil the moment he arrives. She sees the power he represents, and she calculates her position relative to it, and she makes the switch with the speed of someone who has been waiting for a reason to make it. She tries to make herself attractive to him, in the specific way someone tries to impress a person who controls their future. The show reveals, when she turns her head, that she literally has two faces. Her normal face on one side, and a face covered in heavy makeup on the other, which she has prepared for exactly this occasion. Gumball calls her two-faced. The show makes the metaphor physical, the way it always does. Rob arrives. By this point in the series, Rob has been through a specific journey. He was erased to the void, he escaped broken, he became Gumball's nemesis because Gumball inadvertently gave him the role. He used the universal remote in the disaster and the rerun. He chose to give up his friendship with Gumball to reset the timeline. He spent subsequent episodes trying to figure out what came next for a villain whose arc had been resolved. An episode called The X showed him trying to replace Gumball with Banana Joe as his nemesis because Gumball was easier to hate than to have complicated feelings about. In the episodes immediately before the Inquisition, Rob had discovered something through Banana Barbara's paintings. Barbara is an artist who paints the future without understanding that she is doing it. Her paintings had shown the void consuming Elmore, the image first seen at the end of The Oracle in Season 3, the Watterson family running terrified through static as their world collapsed around them. Rob, who remembered the void better than anyone alive, understood what the paintings were showing. He understood that what was coming for Elmore was not a villain with a plan. The void did not have a plan. The void was a condition, a cosmic process of elimination that would erase Elmore when Elmore stopped having a reason to exist. Rob had spent the episodes before the Inquisition trying to save Elmore from this. His method, turning everyone at the school into live-action humans, humans so they could exist in the real world instead of the animated one when the void came was the method of someone working with the tools available to him. He was not wrong about the threat. He was not wrong that transformation was necessary. He was wrong about the form the transformation should take. He arrives at Elmore Junior High to find that Superintendent Evil has already started doing what Rob was trying to do, except in a way that strips the students of who they are rather than preserving them. Rob does not support this. The show has arrived at its strangest configuration. The villain of the series is trying to stop the person doing the thing the villain was also trying to do, because the method is wrong and the intent behind it is wrong. And Rob, who has been broken and erased and rebuilt as someone whose defining characteristic is that he remembers everything, is the only person in the building who understands what is actually at stake. Gumball, Darwin, and their classmates fight back. The fight is specific to the show's logic. Penny shapeshifts, her true form, the emotional shapeshifter revealed in the shell, cycling through its shapes as she uses them in the conflict. This is confirmed as her 8th time shapeshifting in the series by the official Gumball wiki, which also notes that she shifts into her dragon form for the 4th time in this episode. These are not random details. The show tracked Penny's transformations across seasons, and the wiki tracks them across episodes, and the specificity of the count is a measure of how carefully the show built its continuity. Gumball kisses someone he thinks is Penny. The girl has blonde hair and pigtails. The real Penny, it turns out, has become a redhead as a human. He kissed Sarah. This makes Sarah happy enough and Penny angry enough that both of them change back. Penny from her human form into her shapeshifter form, Sarah from whatever state she was in before into something different. The emotional logic of this transformation is very Gumball. The wrong kiss fixed something that the right device was supposed to fix through the indirect action of generating the exact emotional states required to reverse the effect. The students win. Superintendent Evil is defeated. They celebrate. They are cartoons again. The hallways of Elmore Junior High are full of the same improbable collection of living objects and strange beings that filled them at the start of the episode. Everything appears to be fine. Rob is the only person not celebrating. Rob has understood something that none of the students have understood. Superintendent Evil was not the real threat. He was a symptom. The real threat is the void, which has been building in the background of the show since season 3, which will consume Elmore not because a villain commanded it to, but because a world that stops mattering gets erased, and a show that ends gets consumed by the static that surrounds it. Rob tries to explain this. He tries to make them understand that his plan, however wrong the method, was motivated by a real danger that has not been addressed by defeating Superintendent Evil. The students have stopped the inspector. They have not stopped what the inspector's arrival was a symptom of. Nobody listens. They knock him unconscious. They celebrate. The school continues. Rob wakes up alone in Elmore Junior High at night. The building is empty. He stands in the dark hallway and he says, in the voice of someone who has been right about something for a very long time and has run out of ways to make people believe it, that this transformation was the only way, that he was trying to save them, that they made the wrong choice and did not know it and will not know it until it is too late. The floor beneath him breaks open. The void begins rising through the crack, not rushing, not attacking, simply arriving. The way things that have been patient for a very long time finally arrive when the time is right. The static spreads across the floor of Elmore Junior High, and the floor disappears into it, piece by piece, and Rob grabs the edge of what is left and holds on. He looks down. He looks at the static below him. He says, with the complete calm of someone who has accepted what is happening, "Oh no, it has started." He falls. The screen freezes on him falling. His expression, in the frozen frame, matches exactly the expression Banana Barbara painted on him in a canvas that appeared in an episode seasons earlier. His arms out, his body falling, his face doing what a face does when a person is finally, completely out of options. The wiki confirms this directly. The last shot of Rob falling into the void mimics the exact pose as Banana Barbara's painting of him. The painting was made seasons before the episode aired. The show knew this moment was coming before most viewers knew Rob existed. The credits play over static. The words, "To be continued," appear. The Inquisition was documented by Slash Film in 2022 as an episode that predicted the Warner Brothers animation purges, the period beginning around around 2022 when the company that owned Cartoon Network began removing animated shows from streaming platforms, canceling productions, and generally treating animation as a category of content that could be eliminated when budgets required it. The article noted that the episode depicted in 2019 the existential fear that a large administrative force would arrive and strip the cartoon out of a cartoon world in the name of normalcy and efficiency. The show did not know this specifically. Ben Bocale could not have known in 2019 what decisions Warner Brothers would make in 2022. What the show knew was the general shape of the fear, that the thing most likely to end a world like Elmore was not a dramatic villain, but a quiet administrative decision made by someone in a suit with a checklist, for whom the strangeness of Elmore was a problem to be corrected rather than a quality to be preserved. Superintendent Evil is not evil in the way cartoon villains are usually evil. He has no speech about conquest. He wants things to be normal. He wants the school to function within acceptable parameters. He wants the students to be the kind of students a superintendent can recognize and assess and file reports about. His evil is the evil of someone who looks at something irreplaceable and sees instead something irregular. Rob fell into the void fighting that. He was wrong about the method and right about the threat, and he spent the final moments of the series alone in an empty hallway, knowing both of those things at once. The show ended with its most reliable rememberer falling into the static. The person who carried the memory of everything the void had done, the person who knew what was coming, the person who had been broken by the void once already and survived it. He fell back in, and the screen froze on his face, and the static spread, and 6 years passed before anyone found out what happened next. The Inquisition is the last scene in this video because it is the last scene the show made, and because it holds everything the show had been building since The Job established that cartoon rules are physics and The Void established that boring things get erased. Superintendent Evil is the human face of the Void, the thing that arrives before the erasure, that makes the erasure possible by first making everything normal enough that nothing worth keeping remains. What the show did across 6 seasons and 10 cases in this video was demonstrate repeatedly and with complete commitment that the rules underneath a cartoon world are more real and more strange and more worth paying attention to than the surface of the cartoon ever suggested. The Job showed that Richard's unemployment was cosmic law. The Void showed that boring characters get erased. The Signal showed that the broadcast itself can break and the characters inside it feel the damage. The Disaster showed that a $12 remote could rewrite the universe. The Finale showed that consequences are real until a reset button makes them not real. The Downer showed that a bad mood can empty a world. The Puppets showed that abandoned things remember being abandoned. The Shell showed that what a person hides can be bigger than the shell they use to hide it. The Internet showed that the things that feel abstract and distant are actually living in their mother's basements. And the Inquisition showed that the most dangerous thing in Elmore was never the Void itself. Before we move on, if you're enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. The most dangerous thing was the possibility that nobody would believe the Void was coming until it was already there. Section 9. The Peanut Who Was Hiding a Dragon. There is an episode of The Amazing World of Gumball where a school play goes wrong and changes everything. Not everything in the plot, everything in the world. The relationship that the show had been building across 3 full seasons. The one that every viewer could see coming from the first episode, and the show kept almost completing and then pulling back from. That relationship finally arrives in Season 3, Episode 20, because Gumball headbutts Penny during a school play and cracks her shell open. The shell is literal. Penny Fitzgerald has, for the entirety of the show's run up to this point, lived inside a peanut shell. A hard outer casing, roughly the shape and color of a peanut, with antlers growing from the top and a face on the front. This is what Penny looks like. This is what everyone in Elmore has always understood Penny to be, a peanut girl with antlers. The Fitzgerald family are all peanuts with antlers. This is not considered unusual in Elmore because nothing is considered unusual in Elmore. The crack spreads from the point of impact across the surface of the shell. Light comes through it, then more light. Then the shell comes apart and what was inside it steps out. And Penny is not a peanut. Penny is a shape-shifting creature made of light and feeling. Her form shifts based on her emotional state. When she is happy, she is translucent and glowing, with wings and a larger head, and a quality that the show's creator Ben Bocale described as taking inspiration from the films of Hayao Miyazaki. Miyazaki. When she is frightened, she becomes something smaller and curled in on itself. When she believes she is a monster, when the fear of being seen takes over, she becomes a monster. Not metaphorically, she grows, she roars. She tears through the streets of Elmore as something large and frightening, and the thing driving the transformation is not rage, but shame. The episode is called The Shell. It was Season 3, Episode 20, Episode 96 of the series overall. It aired in October 2014 and holds a rating of 9.4 out of 10 on IMDb. In 2016, it won Best Children's Series and the Children's Choice Award at the British Animation Awards, confirmed by the official TV Tropes documentation of the episode. The Shell is in this video for a specific reason that goes beyond the strangeness of the transformation sequence. The strangeness of the transformation is visible and obvious. A peanut girl becomes a shape-shifting creature and runs through Elmore as a monster, and the boy who loves her chases her through the streets, telling her he likes what he sees. That sequence earns its place in any collection of Gumball scenes that make zero sense on the surface. The deeper reason the Shell belongs here is what it does with the metaphor. Every other episode in this video takes something invisible, a rule, a feeling, a fear, a broadcast signal, and makes it physical. The Job made Richard's role in the show into a law of physics. The Downer made Gumball's bad mood into a landscape. The puppets made the feeling of abandoned toys into a dimension with its own geography. The Shell makes the experience of hiding who you are into a literal shell that can be cracked open by accident during a school play. And what comes out when the shell breaks is something so much larger than the shell suggested that the world around it has to reorganize itself to make room. Penny's father, Patrick Fitzgerald, spends the episode trying to get the shell back on. He tries to keep Penny away from Gumball because Gumball cracked it, and he blames Gumball for the exposure. He tries to keep Penny inside, in her room, contained. His instinct is to put the casing back over the thing that was inside it and return to the situation where nobody could see what his daughter actually was. The show treats this with the same seriousness it treats everything. Patrick is not presented as straightforwardly villainous. He is a father who is frightened. The world of Elmore has a specific relationship to things that look unusual, and Patrick has spent his daughter's entire life managing that relationship on her behalf, keeping her in a shell because the shell was safer than whatever waited outside it. He is wrong. The show is clear that he is wrong, but the show takes the time to make his wrongness understandable before it makes it irrelevant. The monster sequence is the scene that makes zero sense and makes complete sense simultaneously. Penny runs. Gumball chases her. She is large and frightening and tearing through the streets of Elmore in a form that the town has no framework for processing. People scatter. Things break. The damage is real within the logic of the scene. Gumball keeps running after her. He is not running away. He is not trying to contain her or stop her or get her back in the shell. He is running toward her because he wants her to hear him. And what he wants her to hear is that he likes what he sees. All of it. The glowing version and the monster version and everything in between. He liked Penny when she was a peanut with antlers because Penny was inside the peanut. Now Penny is outside the peanut and he likes that too, without reservation or qualification. She hears him. The monster form shrinks. The shape stabilizes into something calmer. The show cuts to them standing together in the aftermath of a chase through the streets, and then cuts to them in outer space, which is where the show puts Gumball and Penny when they are about to kiss. A location choice. The Gumball Wiki confirms this was the third time the two characters were in outer space at a moment of romantic significance. The first was in The Pressure. The second was in The Party. The third is here. They kiss. The official wiki confirms this is the first time in the series that Gumball and Penny kiss on the lips successfully. Previous near kisses and accidental kisses across 3 seasons of buildup had always been deflected or interrupted or misaimed. This one lands. The Shell is also the episode where Banana Barbara's paintings appear for the first time. The prophetic artworks that would go on to predict Rob's fall into the void in the Inquisition, that would show the Wattersons running through static seasons before the finale. The wiki confirms that the Shell marks their first appearance in the series. The paintings that end the show are first seen in the episode where Penny's shell breaks open. The show planted its final image in the same episode it completed its central relationship. Penny stays out of her shell from this point forward. She remains in her shapeshifter form for the rest of the series, an ongoing presence in Elmore as something that cannot be put back in a casing, that has been seen and accepted and does not need to hide anymore. The shell holds a specific position in the larger argument this video has been building. Every scene in this video is a scene where the surface of something breaks and what is underneath is stranger and more real than the surface suggested. Richard's unemployment broke the surface of cartoon logic and revealed physics underneath. The void broke the surface of a normal school hallway and revealed a dimension of static underneath. The signal broke the surface of the broadcast and revealed the crew underneath. The disaster broke the surface of a television remote and revealed a tool that could rewrite the universe underneath. The finale broke the surface of a clip show and revealed a reckoning underneath. The downer broke the surface of an ordinary bad morning and revealed an entire hallucination underneath. The puppets broke the surface of a normal attic scene and revealed a revenge plot 7 years in the making underneath. The Inquisition broke the surface of a routine school inspection and revealed the beginning of the end of the world underneath. The shell broke the surface of a peanut and found a dragon. That is the logic the show ran on. Crack anything open far enough and what comes out is bigger and stranger than the thing that was containing it. The shells in Elmore are always smaller than what they hold. Before we move on, if you're enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. The shell cracked something open that stayed open for the rest of the series. The internet did something different. Rather than cracking a shell to find something real inside it, that episode took something that feels enormous and invisible and gave it a body, an address, and a mother who makes dial-up sounds when she apologizes. The show that turned a bad mood into a landscape and a peanut into a dragon also turned the entire internet into a person living in a basement and treated the confrontation that followed with complete seriousness. Section 10. The internet lives in his mother's basement. Gumball watches a screamer video. This is the setup. A screamer video is a specific type of content that was common in the early internet era. A video that begins with something calm and peaceful, holds that calm long enough for the viewer to relax into it, and then cuts without warning to something loud and startling designed to produce a fright response. The Keifi car commercial is the specific reference the show uses here. A real German advertisement from 2004 that became one of the most well-known examples of this format. The ad shows a peaceful scene, a car driving through countryside, and then cuts to a monster screaming directly at the camera. It was widely shared online specifically because people kept sending it to other people to watch their reaction. Gumball watches it. He reacts badly. He screams for a prolonged period. He cannot stop. He calms down. He clicks the next video. He discovers that his webcam was on the entire time, recording his reaction, and that the recording has already been uploaded to the internet and is spreading. The view count climbs fast enough to burst out of the side of the monitor when Darwin refreshes the page. The number exceeds the total population of Earth. Gumball notes this is mathematically impossible. Darwin points out that this is where things are now. The next day at school, every single one of Gumball's classmates has seen the video. There are remixes. There are versions set to music. There are versions where other people's faces have been edited over Gumball's face during the scream. The video has become the kind of thing that exists in multiple forms simultaneously, that has been taken apart and rebuilt by people who had no connection to the original moment and no particular reason to care about the person in it. Gumball decides to take the internet down. The internet is season 2, episode 37, episode 73 of the series overall. It aired in November 2013. The episode's premise is simple enough to summarize in one sentence. Gumball wants to remove a video from the internet and ends up confronting the internet itself as a physical being. The execution of this premise is where the episode earns its place in this video. The internet, capital T, capital I, presented as a proper noun and a character, lives at a specific address that Gumball and Darwin find by looking it up on a computer. The address is real within the world of Elmore. The internet has a house. The house has a door. The door is answered by his mother, who makes dial-up modem sounds when she speaks, the specific digital tones that older internet connections made when establishing a link. The sound that anyone who used the internet in the late 90s or early 2000s associates with the beginning of being online. She apologizes for letting Gumball and Darwin into the house. The apology comes out as dial-up sounds. The internet is upstairs upstairs in his room. His room is described in the episode as his secret base. He calls it this without apparent awareness of how this sounds. He is behind a screen in the safety and comfort of his own home, which he states out loud is why he can be a jerk to anyone. The distance of the screen is the protection, the barrier between the person causing harm and the person receiving it, the thing that makes it feel consequence-free from the inside. He says this, and then the door to his room explodes, and Gumball and Darwin are standing in it. He demands to know who let them in. Gumball says his mother did. The internet yells at his mother for letting enemies into his secret base. She apologizes again. Dial-up sounds. The episode does several things simultaneously that are worth separating out. The first is the physical geography of the confrontation. Getting to the internet's house requires crossing Elmore, while the internet actively tries to stop them. The official Gumball wiki confirms that the internet hacks traffic signs, police records, power lines, and specifically notes that this means the physical poles, not just the electricity running through them, and fire hydrants. It controls these things remotely and uses them to block Gumball and Darwin's path through the town. The boys find a solution. They walk through the park instead. The park has no technology. The internet cannot reach them there. The single greatest vulnerability of a being that controls all connected infrastructure in Elmore is an area with no connected infrastructure. A patch of grass and trees defeats it completely. This is a joke about the internet's actual relationship to disconnected spaces. The way that going offline, moving away from screens, being somewhere without a signal, removes a person from the reach of the things that feel inescapable when they are online. Gumball and Darwin solve the problem by going outside. The solution is that simple and that complete. The second thing the episode does is use the clickbait sequence to make a point about time. Before they leave for the internet's house, the internet tries to stop them with content. The official wiki documents this specifically. The internet directs videos like 100 funny animals in hats and top 100 fails of all time at them, and they waste several hours trying to resist clicking through. They know they are being manipulated. They can see the mechanism of the manipulation operating in real time. They click anyway for hours before they manage to stop. Darwin, during this sequence, watches enough videos of puppies that he physically gains weight. The sweetness of the content is so concentrated and so relentless that it affects his body. He asks Gumball to click something else. His body is a real-time measurement of how much content he has consumed. Darwin attempts to reach the internet through a song. This is Darwin's solution to most problems. Find the feeling underneath the behavior, address the feeling directly, trust that something good exists in everything and can be reached if approached with enough sincerity. He writes a song about how there is a beating heart in everything. He makes exceptions for lawyers, zombies, and jellyfish, which is the show being honest about the limits of the philosophy. But the core of the song is a genuine attempt to connect with a being whose entire existence is organized around disconnection and distance. The internet uploads the song, then it edits the song. By the time the internet is done with it, the song is over 20 minutes long, the audio is nearly unrecognizable, and the message has been buried under so many layers of alteration that it no longer communicates anything Darwin intended. The song goes viral in its destroyed form. It becomes the most viewed thing Darwin has ever made, reaching millions of people in a version that no longer contains any of what Darwin put into it. This is the moment Gumball decides to confront the internet directly. Not because the video was embarrassing, though it was, because the thing Darwin made with sincerity was turned into something unrecognizable and spread to millions of people in that unrecognizable form. And the being responsible for this is sitting in a room in a house at a specific address and can be reached by walking there. The confrontation in the internet's room does not resolve. Gumball and Darwin reach him. They stand in his space. They have him at a disadvantage. He is behind his screen. They are physically present in the room with him. The distance that made him powerful has been crossed. They offer a compromise. They will not take him down. He will try to be better. This is the deal on the table. The internet refuses. The episode cuts to credits as Gumball and Darwin are still reacting to this. There is no resolution shown. The video stays up. The internet keeps being what it is. The boys walked across Elmore, defeated every obstacle, reached the source of the problem, offered a reasonable exit, and the exit was rejected. The episode ends with the situation unresolved because the situation the episode is describing cannot be resolved by two boys walking to a house. The Gumball Wiki documents this ending as a no ending, a deliberate choice to close the episode at the moment of refusal rather than manufacturing a solution that the premise could could not honestly support. The internet does not become better because Gumball and Darwin asked it to. The video does not come down. The viral spread continues. The problem the episode was about is still there when the credits roll. The internet is the episode that most directly describes something real about how the world outside Elmore functions. Every episode in this video has used the strangeness of Gumball's world to say something true about roles and consequences and memory and loss and the things people hide inside shells. The internet says something true about the specific experience of being a person whose most embarrassing moment has been seen by more people than exist on Earth, and about the gap between understanding where harm comes from and being able to do anything about it. The internet lives in his mother's basement. His mother makes dial-up sounds. He controls traffic lights and physical power poles from his room. He cannot be reached by walking through the park. All of these things are true in Elmore. Most of them are true everywhere else, too. The internet ended without a resolution because some things in Elmore cannot be resolved by confronting them directly. They can only be understood. And understanding, as the final section of this video will show, is sometimes the only thing a show can honestly offer. Because the scenes that make zero sense in the Amazing World of Gumball were never really senseless. They were the most honest things the show knew how to say, dressed in the only language Elmore had available. If you enjoyed this video essay, make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.